Hello, Aziz again. In this video, we're going to do variables. This video is going to be the first video in about 4 to 5 videos to explain and demonstrate variables. In any programming language, there are variables, and every language, each will have their own individual ways to create, store, update, modify, and delete variables. In this channel, we will be doing the Python programming language. And you can guess that we'll be doing introduction to variables using Python. So let's start, shall we? Okay, so what's being loaded up to the screen is the Jupyter notebook. Okay, I'll be using this to run a few demos, and since we are not going to do a full script here, so I chose this IDE to actually demonstrate. Okay, so let's start doing it. All right, so let's say for example you have a variable a, okay, and you're going to actually store the character hello. So hello is going to be the character. Okay, so in Jupyter you have two ways for to actually see the stored variable. One is you just type a and just say hello. Okay, but if you're going to use let's say interpreter to actually run this and you want to know what's a, so you just call up the function print and you put the variable a inside. Okay, as demonstrated in our hello world demonstration. Okay, another way for you to actually run this hello is to actually replace this a and putting hello. Okay, it starts either way, but just to I would say just for this demonstration where we're going to show variables, it's better you put a inside this print a. Okay, all right. So what are some of the things that you can actually put inside here? As long as to make it simpler for you, as long as you can type it on the keyboard, you can do it. So let's say for example you want to include a space in after the letter O. You can't really see, but what if I'm going to do, okay, so you can really see this space, but because I have actually pressed space twice, you can actually see that space is a character. As long as you actually put it within the double colon, then you can actually have in the character itself. Okay, so instead of hello, let's say you want to put in numbers, we'll call it another variable name and just put 2, and we're going to change this to b2. Okay, now if you have done any other programming language before this, you will be wondering uh, where's the variable type declaration. Okay, in Python, if you do this, the the library will be actually identifying this as a character and a number. Okay, if this number is not within the double colon, it will be treated as a number. Okay, specifically this will be taken as a integer. So to actually show, okay, sorry, yeah, okay, sorry. I meant into grammatically. I just meant into grammar in my way of calling. Right. So to actually see the type that I entered into B, it is actually an integer. Okay. What if I'm going to put it is as a float? Will it detect? Yes, it does. Okay. All right. So later in a few minutes, I will be showing you the indirect way and the indirect way to actually call upon this variable. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. You have to and take note of this because we'll be doing multiplication later, and how do you actually present it later. Okay. Now, what we have just done just now is a very how to actually pu- put the variable inside the how to put the item in the variable. Okay, so what are some of the small rules that you have to remember? Okay, number one, as I told you, space is considered as a character. Okay, so you have to be careful about what you type within this um, two semicolons. Okay, another thing is that variable name are very sensitive. You if you're gonna type all in small caps, I say for example, this is variable e, and you're gonna say hello, and you're gonna spell the next variable with higher caps v. Okay, sorry. Okay, all right. So I think I just put these two comments first. Okay. Oh, you can see the difference. All right. So the difference between these two is one is a lower cap, another one is a higher cap. Okay. So the first two rules that I really present to you is number one, you have to know if there are any space before or after, because space is considered as a character. If you're gonna enter into this A, then the second rule you have to remember is that the variable names are very sensitive, and if you're gonna type all in small caps, then type all in small caps. Okay. Right, let's do another example. Okay, let's say for example you want to declare a variable to have the same value as another variable. How do you do it? Okay, so we're gonna name this okay, how about variable c equals 1, variable d equals 1. Okay, so let's say for example you have these two variables that you have the same value. Okay, right, do you retype it this way, or is there a simpler way? Right, there is a simpler way, and what you do is variable d equals variable e equals 1. So let's say you want to know what is variable d. It's 1. Okay, so as long as okay, before we go there, I just remember one. The third rule is that variable names or the variable itself will always be on the left side, and whatever is on the right side is the value itself or the object that you're trying to put inside the variable. Okay, so in this actual example, as long as these three variables are on the left side of the equation, then this will be named the variable. Okay, so to actually simplify this equation, variable c is created and it is following variable d. Variable d is created according to variable e, and variable e is equals to 1, the number 1. So number 1 goes to variable e goes to variable d goes to variable C, and hence if you're going to print variable D, it's going to be printed as number 1. Okay, so let's do some maths. Okay, okay. All right, so if you can guess, the first variable has a certain data type. The second variable has the certain data type. But if I'm gonna print the first variable and second variable, it will print 1 and 2. Okay, okay. So no presence for guessing, but can these two variables add up? Let's see. No, it's not. Okay, so the error that we have is that it is unsupported type for integer and string. Okay, what does it mean? Okay, both types, both variables have to need to be in the same type, and only an integer can add another integer, or an integer add into a float. Okay, if an integer add into a float, it will become a float. Okay, right. Now, so we know this is an integer. Okay, so this is a string. Okay, so without amending these two, how do we actually add these two together? Right, so there's this formula that you can, I will not say formula, I will call it function. There is a function that you can call up from the core libraries that are already installed in your computers, that can actually be used to convert numbers to strings, or strings to numbers. Okay, I will say numbers because it can either be a integer or float. Okay, so we just have to call integer. Just have, okay, let's call it abc3 goes to integer of abc2. Print abc type abc3, print abc3. Just gonna comment all this so it will not print what I do not need. Okay, so good. So now is actually integer and the number is still 2. Okay, so let's say we're going to add this together. Okay, cool. So ABC3 is the integer convert. This then is the variable converted from ABC2. Okay, and ABC1 plus ABC3, which is 1 plus 2 equals 3. Okay, so this is the first example that you can actually use to convert a data type to another data type. Alright, this also demonstrates that there are some functions that you can just call by itself without you actually googling it and converting it. Okay, so I will be covering functions in another semi-series, but we'll be covering this just now. Okay, so what are the things that you have to know is that Python actually declares things according to what we type. Okay, so you don't have to actually type it as, okay, ABC1 is a is an integer, ABC2 is a string. You don't have to tell Python that it is an integer. You don't have to tell Python it is a string. Okay, in other programming languages, you actually have to call in libraries. You have to actually specify the data type. In Python, you don't have to do that. Okay, but there are ways for you to actually declare it, okay, just in case you just want to keep it clean. Okay, so to actually, all right, to actually show, if let's say you want to just for your info, how do you actually declare a variable as a string or integer, right? The thing to actually do it is simply, okay, let's call another one as t1. Okay, so let's say by string ABC. Okay, so let's print the type of this variable, and we're going to print what is this. Okay, so to actually compare, okay, it is the same thing. Both are creation of variables. Okay, one is you create by itself, and then you allow the library to actually um, assume. Okay, yes, I will say the word is assume. What is the variable just by declaring the item. Okay, so for the first demonstration, I just use ABC2 as the name of the variable on the left side, and the variable 2 in the semicolon. Okay, all right. Then for the second demonstration, I put the first variable as t1, and I call out the function string to actually say that whatever is in this bracket will be ABC. Okay, and then this whatever is inside in the bracket will be a string. Okay, right. So this thing would be useful in a sense where um let's say for example you foresee that the variables will be computing floating numbers. Okay, and you do know that the first time a number is going to be called into it, it will be a integer. Okay, but you know there will be floating numbers that will be computed into the variables. So how you do it is you actually just write the number float into it. Okay, all right. So what's next? Okay, what's in this next video? We'll be covering list, tuple, and set. Okay, whatever in these few variables, it is just one variable, one item. Okay, it is easily replaced. There's no indexing. Um, is very volatile in a way. There's no way for you to actually save into a database. Okay, so this video is a very simple one variable, one object. Okay, right. One last example before we go to the next video. All right, replacement of um, replacement of objects in a variable. Okay, so let's call it t2 equals 2. Okay, we're gonna print t2 just to show you, right? So let's say for example, okay, for this particular variable where it is one variable, one object, it is easily replaceable. Okay, you have to remember there are different properties, so I will keep on repeating the word replaceable, because in the next video where there is list, there's tuple, there's set. Okay, one of the items, I would call like items, can be replaceable. Another one cannot be replaceable. Another one just replace. One updates. Then there's another one that just will not accept a similar object. So for this particular variable, you just have to remember this variable is replaceable. Okay, as long as you name it as the same variable, you can replace it. Okay, so there isn't a proper word for this demonstration, the particular variable, but I will just call it one variable, one object. Okay, so let's say I'm gonna type 5 into the story. So let's say I'm gonna print the same variable. So the first time that I actually declare it as a variable is the number 2. It is into the variable called t2, and when I print it becomes 2, and then I call up the same variable, and I call in another number which is 5. So what happens, this 5 will just replace the number 2. Okay, right? So um, yeah, that's about it. Okay, so looking forward to see you guys in this next video. We'll be covering list, tuple, and set. Okay, this is my first raw video. I do not script this video at all. Looking forward to your comments. Cheers.